Making money trading news release has never been easier. In this video, I'm gonna share with you my institutional process and especially the one I used to trade GBPUSD this morning during the UK CPI. This is something completely new for most of you, but you will learn how to do that as well. So first of all, this is a UK CPI data. And as you can see, the release is basically as expected, especially for the year over year. So no change. This is basically what the market was already expecting, right? However, we got, let's say, a two-way price action. First, we have this high and then this low. And you can see the live reaction on prime terminal. So you have the data and you have the live reaction. And if you look after, GBPUSD went up. Now, if you look closely, you have the full analysis just here, okay? Less than 3 minutes after, which is definitely enough to make the most of it and catch the move. Because you know, as a trader, you need to act fast. You need to be the fastest trader. So this is again the data. Inside this analysis section, you have more detail 10 minutes later, but the first analysis has been released 3 minutes later. And they talk about, let's say, the combination of exogenous acceleration in consumer-facing inflation, the CPI, core CPI, LPI are moving up year over year, even as product input cost pressure is easy faster than expected. So then you have a lot of information, right? And if you go below, you have the full reaction explained. So you know exactly the impact of this news. And it's not only a news, it's a macro data. We are talking about the inflation in the UK, which is definitely impacting the economy and impacting especially the GBP, okay, and the gilt, for example, or even the FTSE 100, sorry. So this is, for example, the full reaction, same, 8 a.m., no delay, and less than 7 minutes later, you have the reaction explained. Because of course, the financial analyst inside Prime Terminal needs some minute to just better understand the reaction and explain the reaction to you. And it's written that you have an initial two-way price action in the tight 6 pips range at the above forecast core metrics were countered by inline headline and a needs and services CPI. GBPUSD tilted modestly higher shortly after. So basically GBPUSD went down, then went up. Two-way price action. Up, down, and then up again. Instead of just checking the price, you start to understand that these macro data have a real impact on the market, and you start to understand how to interpret the inflation data itself. And this data is, let's say, natural because it's basically as expected. Now, if you look, my choice is GBPUSD. It's not GBGPY, it's not GBIUD, it's not RGBB or GBPCAD. It's GBUSD. Why? Simply because, in my opinion, it was definitely the most interesting for expert to trade, especially if you want to long the GBP. And for example, this is a GB performance, okay? So this is the UK CPI release, and as you can see, we experience this little uptrend after that. However, the US dollar had this kind of, let's say, negative momentum since hours. Okay, this is a 8 hours currency strain, right? And we experienced this flip again between the US dollar and the GBP. And in my opinion, it was definitely interesting, especially regarding the current price action, because the GBPUSD went up and in the same time the US dollar was definitely going down. And after that we experienced as well more pressure on the DXY because of this headline. Okay, it's written modest DXY downside seen in recent trade whilst energy prices dip slightly, blah 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 blah. You have the full reasoning, you know exactly why the US dollar is going down. So it was like a big confirmation that before the trade, I want to long GBPUSD. If it's part of the strengthening scenario, okay? If it's part of the weakening scenario, it doesn't really make sense. But if it was part of the strengthening scenario, which is the case today because the inflation is as expected, but still, it's not below the range, it's not above the range. So it's quite neutral, a little bit positive. And that's exactly why, because of this momentum, I decide to execute a long on GBPUSD. Now let's talk about the execution itself. I didn't want to risk 1%, doesn't make sense. If I risk 1% on, let's say, a news release, it's simply because I'm confident about the impact or because the impact is very clear. However, for this example, it's not really clear at all because, as I said, the year over year, it's 2.9% as expected. Okay, so even if we have a two-way direction, then the market went up a little bit simply because the trend just before was still, you know, a kind of uptrend as well. So they just continued the uptrend, and the inflation was, let's say, some noise. And still, I execute the trade at this low, okay, after we went up and then down, and I execute a trade here. Why? Simply because in my opinion, it was not below the range. It was not above the range, but it was not below the range, so not really negative, especially for the year over year, right? And in the addition of that, I checked the currency trend. As I said, the US dollar was going down and the GBP still quite positive, still quite, let's say, interesting to long. So that's exactly why I execute this, let's say, quick in and out trade, a scalp trade, okay, for a few minutes, probably, yeah, basically 10-15 minutes, easy money, but only a risk reward of 1 with a smaller risk, 0.5%. As I said, I don't want to risk 1% if, let's say, the risk is just too high. As a trader, you need to protect your capital, but you need to make money as well. So if you spot, let's say, an opportunity, even if it's not, let's say, the biggest one or the best one, you still have to consider this opportunity. And this is exactly what happened this morning with this trade. And that's why I execute this long on GBPUSD. So this is basically my full process around this UK CPI data. Of course, we can go deeper with all the exercise, okay? But yeah, I just want to share with you my institutional process so you can better understand the macro data impact on the market, especially regarding, let's say, the CPI in the UK. We'll get later the FOMC minute. Maybe in a few days you will get another central bank decision. All of this event are part of what we call the context. And context change everything in trading. So again, if you want to learn this trading, this kind of institutional process, you can apply below to learn with me. If you want to get access to Prime Terminal, to get access to real-time line, to get access to live market reaction, to better understand the currency trend, to the, let's say, the live market score. Okay, this is definitely crazy. I didn't talk about it. But on Prime Terminal, you can just turn on the live score. You just have to listen. You have the data in a few seconds. You don't have any real delay. And as a retail trader, this is definitely next level. And that's why, basically, I execute this trade in the first minute. So again, if you have any question, feel free to ask.